Now students, let us begin with graphical representation. Graphical frequency distribution can be represented by a histogram and frequency polygon. Let us learn histogram first. To draw histogram, we need to check whether classes are continuous or not. If not, we will convert it to continuous classes. Here in this question, we have continuous classes. Let us solve first sum of exercise 7.4. Question 1. The given information is about literate males between the ages 15 and 45 in a colony. We are asked to draw a histogram. Now draw x-axis and y-axis. Here we represent class boundaries along the x-axis. So here we represent 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 and 45 on x-axis. We represent percent along the y-axis. So here we represent 0, 5, 10, 15, 20 and so on till 50 on y-axis. Write scale as 1 centimeter equal to 5% along y-axis. 1 centimeter equal to 5 years along x-axis. Now we place histograms one by one for class 15 to 20. We take 42 as percent. For class 20 to 25, we take 38 as percent. Thus we draw bars for each class and our histogram is ready. Question 2. The data shows the average daily consumption of milk in liters of 50 families in a colony. We have to prepare frequency distribution table with classes 0.0 to 0.5, 0.5 to 1.0 and so on. Also, we have to draw histogram. Step 1. Check for the classes. Since they are continuous, we need not worry and proceed to prepare the table. Step 2. Draw 3 columns for class interval, tally marks and frequencies. We begin with 0.0 to 0.5 as first class interval and write the next intervals as shown in question. We end with class interval 3.5 to 4.0 since the maximum score is 3.5 liters. Step 3. Now put tally marks against class interval in which the scores falls. We begin with 2.0 and put a tally mark against class interval 2.0 to 2.5. We will complete putting tally mark against the class intervals. Then we calculate the frequency. Step 4. We now draw x and y axis on graph paper. Mark class interval on x-axis. We begin with class 0 to 0.5. We then mark remaining class intervals. The frequencies which represent the number of families are marked on y-axis. We take scale as 1 centimeter is equal to 1 family. Do not forget to write the scale on the graph. Step 5. Construct the bars with class interval and the corresponding frequencies. Frequency polygon. Now let us learn how to draw frequency polygon. Let us solve first sum of exercise 7.5. Question 1. The given information is about literal females between the ages of 15 years to 45 years in a village. We are asked to draw a frequency polygon. Let us first draw a 4-column table to plot frequency polygon. In first column, we will write class intervals given to us. In frequency polygon, it is assumed that the frequency of the class preceding the first class and the class succeeding the last class in the classification is 0. So students, remember, here class interval begins with 15 to 20. But in frequency polygon, we shall consider a class interval before 20 as our first class interval. Even at the end, we will consider one more class interval, that is 45 to 50. Our first column is ready with class intervals. Second column in table consists of class mark, which is arithmetic mean of upper and lower class limit. Third column in table consists of frequency. Frequency of assumed class is taken to be 0. Fourth column we will have points to be plotted on x-axis and y-axis. On x-axis we consider class mark and on y-axis we consider frequency. Let us draw frequency polygon. Draw x-axis and y-axis. Let us take a scale as 1 centimeter is equal to 10% female along y-axis. Note the different scales may be taken on the axis considering the nature of the data, size of the paper, etc. If the position of the origin on the y-axis is according to the scale which is not so on x-axis, then it is indicated by drawing a pause mark on the x-axis near the origin. If necessary, the mark can be made on y-axis or on both the axes. Let us plot point for class 10 to 15. Next plot for 15 to 20. Similarly, plot all points. Join all the points and we will get our frequency polygon. Question 2. Monthly attendance of students of 10th class is given below. We have to draw a frequency polygon. We draw 4 columns. First column for class interval, second column for class mark, third column for frequency, fourth column for coordinates. Now students, for a frequency polygon, the classes have to be continuous. Since here the classes are already continuous, we continue with the next step. We have to find the midpoints of class intervals. These are also called the class marks. To find the class mark of each class interval, we take the sum of the upper limit and lower limit and divide by 2. We begin with class that comes before class interval 0 to 5, which is -5 to 0, and end with a class interval that comes after class interval 20 to 25, which is 25 to 30. Hence we get our class marks as -2.5, 2.5, 7.5, 12.5, 17.5, 22.5 and 27.5. Since we have to plot the class mark on x-axis and the frequency on y-axis, we make tables showing the x-y coordinates of points to be marked. Since first and last class mark will show 0 frequency. We now draw the x-axis and y-axis on graph paper. Represent the class mark on x-axis and frequency, which is the percentage on y-axis. Take scale as 1 centimeter is equal to 10% on y-axis. Show it at right-hand corner of the graph. Plot the points according to their x, y coordinates. Write the coordinates of points on the graph. Join the points serially. That completes the drawing of the polygon. A polygon will always begin and end with a class mark having frequency 0. Question 3. Prepare the grouped frequency distribution table from the cumulative frequency distribution table. We have to draw frequency polygon. Since this is a less than type, it means for every class the number represents the upper limit. The difference between two consecutive class is 10. So the difference between the upper and lower limit is also 10. We use these conditions to frame the class intervals. Hence, the first class interval will be -5 to 5. Second class interval is 5 to 15. Third class interval is 15 to 25, and so on till we reach 8, which is 65 to 75. Now remember, we have to draw a frequency polygon, so we go to next class, which will be 75 to 85. Now, for every class interval, we have to calculate individual frequencies from the cumulative frequency. For the class interval 75 to 85, we write frequency as 0. The frequency for class 65 to 75 will be difference between its own cumulative frequency and the cumulative frequency of the preceding class 55 to 65. Hence we get 106 minus 91, which is 15. Similarly, for class 55 to 65, it will be difference between its own cumulative frequency of the preceding class 45 to 55. Hence the frequency is 91 minus 70, which is 21. Complete calculating the frequencies of all classes. Now calculate the class mark for each class interval. It is the upper class limit plus lower class limit upon 2. Hence for class interval -5 to 5, it is 0. For class interval 5 to 15, it is 10, and so on. Now, let us show class mark and the corresponding frequencies in the form x, y. The class mark is on x-axis. The frequency is on y-axis. So, our first class mark has 0 frequency and our last class mark 80 has 0 frequency as required for drawing a polygon. Draw x and y axis on graph paper. Plot class mark on x-axis and frequency on y-axis. Take scale as 1 centimeter is equal to 5. Plot points. Write coordinates of points on the graph. Join serially the points to complete the polygon.